Hola, hola, and welcome to the Cultura Cash podcast. This is Gigi, your host. I'm a influencer, financial educator, and the award-winning author of Cultura Cash. And today we are joined by a friend of the show, Estrella Cerrato. If you guys listen to this podcast, I'd be very surprised if you didn't know Estrella. Estrella is an academic influencer, a podcast, and the founder of Cafecito con Estrellita, and now the founder of Conchas for Kids. So welcome to the show, Estrella.
Hello, Giovanna. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so honored. I love your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so proud of everything that you are accomplishing with Conchas for Kids, and we'll get into that later. But for the meantime, for people who are not as familiar with your work or your brand, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, of course. Hello again. I'm Estrella. I started Cafecito con Estrellita in 2020, where it was a space to really be there and support first generation Latina students. I took it so far to a TED Talk, to landing a literary agent, which that's a whole other story for another day. And honestly, like keeping it 1,000% real, it wasn't till, let's see, we're currently, what year are we in? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. It's been
2026.
there we go.
It's
Running a
okay.
campaign is so crazy. But I want to say it was towards the end of quarter 4, 2025. And I was genuinely feeling just stuck because we all know how the political climate is, how things are going economically. It's just a very hot mess. And
Yeah.
I got to the point that I wanted to do something for my community that just felt more, because I've always been the kind of person that when I do something, I like to do it right. I like to put in a good hustle. That's just how I am. But I also like to be very selective. So I'll take my time with specific things, right? And so I was already having those enraged feelings last year of like, I just want things better for my community. We deserve better. How is that going to look like? I have no idea. Happened last year. My family's first baby nephew was born. We finally have a boy too, because in my family we're all sisters, XYZ, and I love him so much. His name is Junie, and I want to start crying when I
How old
just
is
thinking
he?
about it. Right now, he just turned 1 years old. So he was
Okay.
born last June. But the thing is, I started to get really, really like close to him during the holidays because, with work and it's just a whole different ballgame, right? So I started spending a lot of time with him towards the end of quarter 4 last year. And then just one day it hit me that I grew up with my grandparents. I know I am a first gen Latina, things like that. Well, my grandparents, who I feel gave me the best childhood, they're his grandparents and they're in their 80s. So
Yeah.
it's going to look very different for him, right? And then, two, I used to go to Mexico every December growing up. He most likely might not have that because right now everything is just so different. And his
Mm.
parents, aka my baby sister, who's still my baby sister, they just have different things to navigate right now. And so it started to get me very sad because I know, and I know you know this too, Giovanna, when we're navigating everything that we do here in the workforce, here with entrepreneurship, with university, we are Latinos that come from collectivistic backgrounds and constantly navigating individualistic routes. And it gets very lonely, it gets very overwhelming. But for me personally, when navigating those routes, what would always bring me grounded peace of mind was my culture. Whether it was going back to visit my grandparents and we actually get conchas or just
Hmm.
things like that. And I
So
know with
good.
Right? And I know with my baby nephew, Junie, he's going to do great. I don't know what path he's going to choose, but he's going to be amazing because he's just an amazing little baby. But of course, that's going to come with stressors, with pressures, like it has for all of us. And I want him to always remember his roots because I know that's what's going to keep him grounded as he's navigating
Hmm.
this because that's what's kept so many of us as Latinos grounded. And I'm going to leave it at that because I promise you, as we keep talking through this podcast, I will answer so many because I just know the questions always just get answered through it. But thank you for just giving me the space. And that's what really pushed Conchas for Kids.
Thank you, Estrella. And for those that don't know, Estrella was actually a big inspiration for me to create first gen content because before I was a content creator, I loved her content talking about the challenges for first gen Latinas in academia. And I'm like, wait, I can do something like this, but around money. And I've always told her she was a big catalyst for that. So I'm just so proud of where you are now and your new venture with Conchas for Kids. I love your mission and how you are going to help the younger generation like really embrace the culture. So it sounds like kind of what gave the inspiration for Conchas for Kids is your nephew, and being around the holiday season. Can you tell us more about that story? I feel like there's a piece missing that I've seen online for maybe listeners that haven't heard the story.
Yes, of course. Okay. So my baby nephew is definitely one of the biggest inspos. And then, because I do get this question a lot too, why conchas? There's so many different types of pastries. And for me personally, if you remember me mentioning, my grandparents are one of the reasons why I did have a good, like, they're one of the highlights of my childhood. And one of those things, how that looked like was growing up every Sunday, mi abuelito used to take me to the panaderia
Mm-hmm.
literally every Sunday. And it was just always so much fun. And we'd go back to my grandparents' home. By the time we would get back, mi abuelita, she would always have the chocolate y barra or abuelita. It was
Mm-hmm.
just depending on her mood, right? She would
Mm-hmm.
already have it brewing, and we'd sit together, and he would always share the best stories and lessons. I just love spending time with him. Since I was little to now, I just love it. And those really impacted me because, as I'm telling y'all, with being Latinos, whether you're first gen or not, navigating the US, it's hard. It's hard. And so for me, and just again, for me, how I take care of myself is just being in this case with my grandpa, which now I live like 10 minutes from him. That was intentional and things like that. And como se dice? And it's the intentionality between figuring out what are the things that keep you grounded. And for me, it's like, okay, spending time with my grandpa, and how can I make that feel not just to impact future kids, but to also initiate nostalgia, because nostalgia is one of the best feelings. And that's wherein I chose conchas.
That's so good. Thanks for sharing that with us, Estrella. And I remember seeing one of your videos too, where you mentioned that there really isn't a lot of representation, Latino, Latina, Hispanic toys. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for asking that question. Once I started like on this mission of like, how can I help express the cultura to my baby nephew? I would go to the stores, whether it was a CVS, whether it was a Walmart, just anywhere. There were so many toys. And I just have to highlight Latina moms who create content. Y'all are just so amazing. You're sharing all the gems on where to find good things,
Yeah.
right? So I would go to like these stores and things like that. And genuinely, there were like little to no Latino toys. Like, if anything, I would find a Dora the Explorer doll or an Americanized taco. And I'm just like,
Like a
how
hard shell taco as a toy?
yes, girl, yes. And I'm just like, how Hispanics have one of the largest buying powers here in the US. And you mean to tell me
Mm-hmm.
that they can't put any churros or anything that resonates with us? But even when I would, at least for me, when I would really sit down during quarter 4 of 2025, I would even research, hey, like, are there any concha play sets? Are there any XYZ? And I would find things that were made of felt, which is cool. Like, we need everything, whatever that looks like. But for me, especially because I know you do know this, Giovanna, I really put in a lot of time to learning and embracing my entrepreneurial aspects. So much so where like I even worked with Founders Registry with Anna, all those things, right? To really learn from experts. And I'm at the point where I'm making sure I'm building Conchas for Kids to be a scalable business, so much so that we get on Shark Tank.
Oh my
So
God, so exciting.
yes, thank you. So, and for me, and with the research and just different conversations I would have with others that can relate to my type of business mission, a lot of them would share that if I want to make Conchas for Kids scalable so that Latino children and families can really embrace the cultura nationwide, I need to build towards a scalable level.
So I have a question as a former Shark Tank binger. I don't watch it anymore. I actually stopped watching it because I got so discouraged by seeing people of color come on with great products and then just being like, I know that the numbers hit, the business model makes sense. I know there's a need in the market, but I can't relate to this because they were all white. I think now the sharks have gotten a little bit more diverse. So, but I know from watching the show so much, I know that one of their questions to someone like you would be like, "Oh, what's to stop Mattel from just copying you?" And Mr. Wonderful would be like, "Crush you like the little bug that you are." What would be your response to something like that to them?
I love that question. And for my response is, sure, Mattel can copy the Concha, but they can't copy my brand. They can't copy my persona. They can't, the storytelling, it just won't hit. It won't be the same.
Mhm.
And people will always remember that. And then if
Yeah.
Mr. Wonderful's like, if they hit you with a bus, XYZ, and I'm like, yes, but the mission behind my brand, my story behind it, it'll still live on. Like, for example, completely different, but not, but Kate Spade, like, there's people, her brand is still
Oh,
immensely
yeah.
popular, and
Yeah.
she left us, Que en Paz Descanse, years ago. But her story still remains and hits so many that that's why her brand is still alive and we're out here still buying because that just impacts so many. But thank you for that question. That was really good.
I think it's a good answer. And I also think that the community remembers, right? So they get to know your brand and now they see Mattel want to capitalize on what you've done and they create their dupe. Like, I feel like so many companies have done that and they always get dragged for like, this existed first and now you're just copying it, right? So I don't think it will look good for them anyways. And I think people, especially right now, I think people really want to support the culture because of politically all the stuff we're going through, immigration wise, all the stuff we're going through. So I think that was a good answer. How exciting. So I want to transition a little bit about how you went from, okay, I want this product on the shelves. It doesn't exist in the shelves. This representation is important, but I need to find a way to fund this, right? And you turned to Kickstarter, which can you tell us briefly for people who don't know what Kickstarter is? I remember when watching Shark Tank, they would mention Kickstarter. I didn't know what that was. So for anybody listening that doesn't know, in explaining it to a 5-year-old, what's a Kickstarter campaign?
Thank you for that question. So Kickstarter, it's designed to be all for nothing. So us as creators, founders, if there's a business we want to do, whether you're self-publishing, making a toy, etc., but you need support from your community to get those funds, that's what
Mm.
Kickstarter is. But the way that it works is that everyone can put in their order as pre-order. And if you meet your funding goal, you get all the funds that were raised, even if it was you made over your goal, and then you can start making everyone's products. So then you can give it to them, and you have to make sure you keep them updated because that's
Mm.
where Kickstarter has its reputation. And but if you don't meet your funding goal, everybody gets their money back, and then you just have to start again from square one, whatever that looks like.
I'm curious to know why you picked Kickstarter versus something like GoFundMe, where it isn't all or nothing, right? You get whatever you raise. Did you think about GoFundMe?
I did think about it. And to be honest, and this just goes back to research. So with GoFundMe, one thing that I learned is that GoFundMe is very popular with businesses that they need emergency help right now
Mm.
because of a disaster. Maybe their business location got robbed, or
Hmm.
maybe someone stole their shipment from their
Hmm.
manufacturing to the store. So many other things. And I just genuinely didn't want to touch GoFundMe yet. If it's worked for other people, that is amazing. But for me, when I was doing all that research and really learning how people interpret GoFundMe business wise, I'm like, okay, let me just go ahead and start the Kickstarter route. And then for me personally, it just felt like, I guess I would say safer, because for me, it's like, okay, I know I can do it. I know, because I'll also share some other gems too in regards to how I found the manufacturer. Porque sí hay mucho fraude allí. Like, there's so much fraude in any industry with business, right? So I made sure to do a lot of my work before I submit to the Kickstarter, like a lot of my research, a lot of networking, a lot of connecting, because I also wanted to make sure, like, if I'm doing the Kickstarter route, because again, I just feel like it's safer for like everybody. But then also what I really do like about Kickstarter too is all the data it can give you, because all that data I can take with me to not even just Shark Tank necessarily, but there's usually every year there's different pitch competitions for founders, and things that always work in founders' favors are is just data, 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 data. So
Mm.
Kickstarter, you buy one playset, it's $35 with shipping. If you want to get the Primo bundle, it's 70. And I just love the layout of how Kickstarter gives that. And I also
Mm.
love that for me because, as you know yourself, Giovanna, we work with a lot of brands, and I wanted with Kickstarter to make sure that I have packages that can be catered towards people that work for brands. I'm using my language very carefully because Kickstarter is all about the experience, right? And so if there's awesome people that just work at certain brands, nonprofits that resonate with certain reward tiers, then they'll be able to back it up because it looks rewarding. I just didn't want us to come off like a charity because that's not what Conchas for Kids is. Because I learned a lot from Cafecito con Estrellita in the early days, and I love it so much because it gave me so many learning lessons. But I do know for a fact that there were certain ways with my business models that made Cafecito con Estrellita come off more as a nonprofit than B2B, right? And that's just something I'm very big on learning lessons. Like, okay, I learned this is how this is looking like. What can I make sure to do for the future? Where in this case, Conchas for Kids, that from day one, I don't like this isn't a charity. This is a business. And I need people to know that from day one because that's the only way we're going to scale to make sure that Latinos are represented from a young age to now.
Mm-hmm. And speaking on wanting to be clearly a business as opposed to being confused for a nonprofit, I feel like going the GoFundMe route kind of goes with that more like we need help, right? Where Kickstarter is more for businesses, for products, right? For services. So that totally makes sense why you would have gone that route. A bonus question here. What has surprised you the most while you've been running this campaign? This campaign has been live for what, like a week and a half?
Yes.
What has
Yes. So
surprised you the most since launching?
honestly, what surprised me? Okay, two things. Okay, the first one, like when Latinos want to pull through, they'll pull through. Like I'll even share this, like one of our reward, because we do have high ticket reward tiers, right? And one of them is literally labeled as lights, camera, conchas in real life experience, where if you purchase this tier, you're going to be on our campaigns. You're going to be on the website. Like you'll be one of the first families. And we had two spots.
Mm-hmm.
That tier got booked up in the first 2 days. And it's
Wow.
at $1,000 because again, it's
Yeah.
you don't just get the toys because I was, whatever tier you get,
Mm.
XYZ, but you get the whole experience. And one of the ladies, as long as this Kickstarter goes through, which it will, one of our ladies, she actually lives in another state. So she's going to be
Mm.
traveling with her family here to Southern California. So when our people want to pull through, they will find a way, right? And
Yeah.
then
Oh, yeah.
number two, the other thing that I'm like, but that's why it's so good. So thankfully, I'm glad that you're here, Giovanna, to testify. But with my Kickstarter, our newsletter, it's been weekly active. I'm constantly on IG stories, XYZ, but I'm also posting 3 to 5 times a day, right? Because I want to make sure that Conchas for Kids is one of the first things you think about every morning when you wake up so that you
Mm-hmm.
get your order, right? But the thing that surprised me the most, that's why I'm really putting my all with this campaign, is that people, they're just procrastinators. So I'll still get messages and things like that from my supporters. They'll literally reach out and be like, hey, don't worry, I'm still gonna buy a toy. It's just like I'm gonna do it today, and then today comes and they hadn't done it yet. But me and my husband talk about it all the time, and we're just like, they're probably gonna pull through last minute because that always happens with work, that happens with university students. But again, the biggest takeaway is that at the end of the day, Latinos will pull through. It's just their timeline might look different than what you imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get what you mean. Waiting till the last minute to do stuff. So that's why I love the way that you're running your campaign. I feel like a lot of people that have run Kickstarter campaigns, they post about it once or twice, and it's easy to forget, even if you have the intention to donate, but you are constantly churning out content, which to me, it just shows it's a well executed campaign. And I'll share a little tea here for listeners. So if you are in my newsletter, you have probably seen that for the Spanish translation of my book, I was thinking about a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe. I wasn't sure what route I was going to go. And I decided not to. Instead, I decided to pull money from the business, which that's a conversation for another day, whether that was a good or bad decision. But a big reason why I decided to self fund was because I learned how much work it was to have a successful Kickstarter where, again, it's not just posting once or twice, one email to your newsletter community. No, you have to constantly push this baby out, right? And the way that you show up is like the perfect example of how people should be showing up for their babies, their Kickstarter campaign, right? Like you see the passion in your face. You're always smiling. You're always excited. You have different formats that you're putting out there. Like I can tell that this was like a well thought out launch, and I'm so proud of you. And if anybody has any interest in crowdfunding for their project, I feel like they need to take notes from you because you got it, girl. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how other Latinas can take advantage of Kickstarter? Maybe share 3 hot tips that you've learned that have been very successful for you.
Yes, of course. Okay. Well, Kickstarter. Ah, I love it. Sorry. It's because I wake up, fall asleep thinking about it. Like literally, even before our recording, first thing I did, open my phone, look at where we're at. I'm like, okay, we're making progress. So, yes. So, my three,
Yes.
well, one, don't be afraid to use it because I feel like a lot of the times, especially as Latinas, even when we have resources in front of us, sometimes it's that fear that stops us from fully embracing them or from fully doing the research to get in there, do it. No, it's a resource. Yes, most Kickstarter campaigns are run by, white people. Yes, yes, yes. But that doesn't mean you don't belong. That just means that if anything, that's just a sign for you to show up even more, to take up space, because who doesn't love a good example? Like, I'll tell you this, like for me, I was already planning on doing a Kickstarter campaign in January, right? Because I'm pretty sure all of you, especially you, Giovanna, you're familiar with Stan Store, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a
So
Stan
me
account.
too. Yay. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's
So
like Linktree for people that don't know. It's like what content creators use for their link in bio.
yes. Oh my gosh, perfect. So in January, they were doing this big old competition to win $100,000 grant. And you make your video. So I had entered in that. But regardless, I still knew I was going to do a Kickstarter. If anything, that competition helped me develop the techniques I use for my Kickstarter today, because when I was in that Dare to Dream month competition, one of the biggest requirement was to post every day. It didn't matter what time it was. It just had to be before midnight of said day for 30 days.
Mhm.
So that's something I did, right? But regardless, I was prepping to do Kickstarter. But the reason why I even brought that up is because during that time, I was prepping for Kickstarter. And then during that time, I had seen Alamar Cosmetics come out with her Kickstarter. And it was one of the most inspirational Kickstarters I had ever seen.
I'm
Not only
sorry, I'm not
because
familiar with that brand. What does that
oh,
brand do?
Alamar, yes, the beauty brand. She's
Okay.
okay, no worries. So it's this, I've never met her, but I am a fan. She is a Miami mommy, and she
Ah.
she has her beauty brand, Alamar Cosmetics. And I had been following her for many, many years. Her makeup was in Target. She did this whole brand collab with Encanto, where Encanto and her had this
Oh,
like
cute.
exclusive eyeshadow. And so I followed her for a long time. And so then this year, when I saw, I think it was around January, February, something like that, that she was coming out with her Kickstarter, I was just blown away. Because even though I knew I wanted to do Kickstarter, I was just like, I still at least wanted to see some little blueprint, whatever that looked right, like, right? And just seeing how she executed, seeing now it was so cool because she got fully funded within the first week, which I'm not
Wow.
surprised. I know, which I'm not surprised, because she's been in this industry for so long. Like, people know that she knows what she's doing with making
Hmm.
products, versus for
Hmm.
me, it was so important to really show up even before my Kickstarter was going to be up, because I needed to do the research. I needed to make sure I held myself accountable and live recorded myself, which all of you can see on the Instagram and TikTok, of me going to these factories, of me having these meetings, of me just testing products, where it's just like, hey, this is my first product, but I'm putting my digital blueprint for all of you to see that, like, I'm going to figure it out. And so, this going back to my first hot tip, just do it ready. Like, yes, you're going to be so scared, but just do it. Like, don't shy away just because you may see a lack of representation on Kickstarter. Number two, the second hot tip, do your research. If you can relate to my story, where maybe you don't have a brand, where you've been building physical products for years, but you really do want to make something, even if it's not a kid's toy, maybe it's a book. There's a lot of authors on Kickstarter too. Then do your research well in advance. I would say 6 months to a year in advance, and then document that whole process. Because even if you find it boring, there's a way for you to turn it around to make it digestible for those that are scrolling on social media. So
Hmm.
do your research, record your research, and then three, when you're about to launch your Kickstarter, okay, this is so crazy, but I know as Latinos we can do it. Okay, you know how it's just, don't get too attached with pushing the launch button, because when that launch button is in front of you, you're almost going to feel paralyzed because it's like, oh my gosh, when it's up, it's up. Just disassociate. This is so real. Disassociate and then just close your eyes and click launch. Just do that. Once you know your campaign is ready, just do it, because that's another reason why so many Latinas in particular, we don't always necessarily move forward with what we want to do, because it's that decision paralysis that just stops us. But it's okay. Just detach. You can still love your product, your passion. You can still love it with all your heart, but detach during the moments necessary so you could just do it. So yeah.
Those are some really good gems. Thank you. I really like the one where you said document, even if you find it boring. Something that I think you did really well is, and I know because we're close friends, right? So you always come up on my feed. But I saw that when you were going to launch your campaign, it had to be delayed, right? Because I think they were asking you for a physical prototype of the product. Do you have a drawing
Yes.
before? Yeah,
Sketches. Yes.
sketches. Yeah. So the fact that you were like, oh, guys, we came up on like a bump in the road, but let me get this and you showed that process, right? Of like, you weren't ashamed of like, oh, you didn't ghost the campaign. You were like, we're still here. We had a slight delay. Bear with me. Right. So I thought you handled that very well, because to me, that showed me like she is committed to this. Like other people would have been like, oh, I just started and I'm already screwing up. Where you're like, no, there's going to be bumps in the road, and how do I overcome this? And you did, right? So to me, that made me really believe in like your ability to problem solve and get this done. I have proudly donated, or I should say donation isn't the right word, right? Because it's a contributed, right?
Pledge. Yeah, there we go. Contributed, pledge.
Yeah, I have proudly contributed, pledged for one set. And there's different tiers for people that aren't as familiar with Kickstarters. So for example, if you are on shorter funds right now, you can pledge, like, I think there's a $5 tier, right? So there's different levels for where you are with your finances. There's different rewards for, obviously, the higher you pledge, the more rewards you get. What I like about your campaign is that the amount I pledge, and I believe it's around $35, is that I get a physical product. Right. So I get a physical product to be able to gift. And there's, again, different tiers where you can do that. So I'm actually like putting money towards something that I'm going to get back. So to me, that's exciting. And to like be one of the first ones to have a set to give to my niece. Super, super exciting. Well, thank you so much, Estrella, for coming on and sharing your passion for enhancing representation in the toy industry for Latinos. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, all the visibility that you're bringing to this. How can we support Conchas for Kids? And I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet. What is your goal and where are you at now?
Okay, so my goal is $75,000. And trust me, it is very intentional. Like I said, I've been working on this for months. So let me backtrack a little bit. When I wanted to take on Conchas for Kids in January, I knew I needed to get the help, like to really learn the research. What does that look like? And so thankfully, one of my really good friend, her name is Tanya Mendez. She's the co-founder of Nearshore. And their business is designed to help businesses and creators like ourselves find the right manufacturers for us, right? And so here's the thing. A lot of the times toy products, they are produced and made in China, but you need to be like a really big company and have all the funds to, get all the minimum requirements, right? So I knew I needed something here in the US, and Nearshore, they gave me who I needed. And fun fact, I was only able, for me personally, find one person that's local to me that can make this toy happen. Because, for example, I had gotten on a call with Mexico, because there's a manufacturer out there, but they only do plushies. And so I'm like, no, I'm not trying to do that direction. I'm trying to do this. Now, here's the thing. Building a toy, it's very, very expensive because you need a mold for each piece. My playset is 5 pieces. So the concha, the plate, the cup, the little spoon, and then the little fork, right? But each one needs its own individualized mold, and each mold is $5,000. That's just how it is. That's how much it costs. And trust me, girl, like when I learned the costs after my meeting, like I had my own existential crisis. I had my own tears going on, but I was just like, I can't let this stop me. Like one way or another, this campaign's going to happen. This toy's going to happen. And so then, and don't get me wrong, I did get in contact with China manufacturers, and their molds for 5 pieces altogether was 9,000, but you need a minimum of 3,000 units to 20,000 units. So regardless, it was just going to be a lot of money, no matter what that looked like. And then honestly, especially being this early on and knowing how anxiety filled I am, I genuinely just didn't want to deal with overseas stuff this early on in the game, like at all.
Yeah.
It
I'm
was
kind
just
of
like
still traumatized from COVID and how things shut down and that hurt. Yeah. So I can understand you wanting to keep it local.
1,000%. And so that's just so with the goal being 75,000 with people's pre-orders, especially the high ticket tiers, that is essentially what's going to fund the tooling while also fund your pre-orders that will get pushed out. So it's basically just covering up all the startup costs. And each toy, especially because we're doing it here in the US, each toy, it's going to take about $12 to make. And then, especially so early on, I was told and learned from different consultants that with your product, especially with a toy, because it gets very expensive, especially because when we get to the phase where we have to put, don't choke on this, don't choke, like every little thing we have to put on the box, it all costs money, right? Everything, the packaging. I was advised to charge 3 times as much as it would take to make the toy. And with that, it's just going to all go back to the business so it can keep
So
scaling.
that's where the
So,
75,000 comes from, right? So the five
yep,
pieces at 5,000 each, that's 25K, 25K times three to cover the packaging and the labeling and the proper disclaimers and all that goes into it.
yep, 1,000%. And right now we are over 12,000 funded, which honestly, I'm very happy. Thank you. I'm
Yes.
very happy about. And I have to keep pushing it. I have to
Yes.
keep, that's all I can do. And we're going to see, and then we'll go from there.
No, I hear you. I hear you. You have to keep pushing. You've worked this hard and you're right. I had forgotten that you, even before launching the campaign, there was so much teasing about this is coming up, right? And you showing us the behind the scenes of that. So like I said, you've been putting in the work. Please support Conchas for Kids. Estrella is an amazing human being and she's always been supportive of my work. She has always poured so much into our community for now 6 years because she started in 2020. So this is our time to show up for her in the capacity that you can. If you don't have the financial means to support or pledge money to her campaign, it is free to share the link on your Instagram stories, to send it to your friends who have kids. So I hope that you are able to support Conchas for Kids and Estrella's project. Where can people learn more about your Kickstarter campaign, about the different tiers, rewards?
Literally go to any social channel that you're following Cafecito con Estrellita, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. The link to the Kickstarter is up there. It's right there. You can also follow our Conchas for Kids Instagram. And for funsies too, if you just are bored one day, you want to learn about different Kickstarter campaigns in general, just go to Kickstarter and there you can just type in Conchas for Kids and you'll be able to see everything.
Okay, very good. So again, to repeat, it would be on your Instagram, which is at Cafecito con Estrellita, the Conchas for Kids Instagram, which is at Conchas for Kids. I'm assuming it's on your website. What's your website?
Our website is still Cafecito con Estrellita for now.
Okay. Okay, great. And there you can access the Kickstarter. Is there anything else you want to mention before we finalize the episode?
Please get your pre-orders in by August 1st.
That's
Because,
right. I believe you picked a 4-week campaign. So then the
yeah,
last day to pledge to Conchas for Kids to make this a reality would be when?
August 1st.
August 1st. Okay. So please, please, please go to her Kickstarter to pledge money before then, because again, they have these campaign windows and the money has to be contributed there or it's lost, right? Because it's all or nothing with the
Yeah,
Kickstarter model.
a thousand
Okay.
percent.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Estrella, for everything that you're doing for our community, for sharing so many insights about Kickstarter, and for sharing your passion with us. Thank you all for listening. That is it for today. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts because it adds credibility to the show. Thanks again, Estrella, and thanks for listening. Hasta la próxima.